the numbers, because I believe that it's important that when people are greeted at the front desk, they're greeted with a human. And they need help.
True.
Okay? So basically looking at all that, you're still above the marker of 750,000. So 753,200 versus 773,100. So those are the two, scenario 4 versus scenario 5. In scenario 5, support staff reduction, you have 1. Certified is 8. Certified staff, total of 9. One more time. Your support is a reduction of 1. Your certified is 8. Your total of 9.
How do those numbers, they're pretty dramatically different from the last one that you
Which one?
had said. In scenario 5, it was 3 support staff and it was 12 certified staff for a total of 15 reduction. And now the one you're giving today says only 9 reduction.
Because this is, and we can go in either direction if you want. If you want your superintendent, and I'm not going to agree with you on this, to cut more staff, I could cut more staff so that number is 12.
No, I'm asking why is it different? Okay.
So and the reason it's different is when you start to look at your staff, they have certifications. So sometimes you'll have teachers that are multiplied in 4 or 5 different areas. And so when you look at their certifications, they may have math, science, special ed, ELA, and social studies. And so what happens is they may bump or shift other persons, and based on the seniority, based on their grouping with Senate Bill 7, they may bump people who have slightly higher salaries. And so those salaries, because we use an average, those salaries are different from person to person. So what ended up happening is we only had to reduce 8 people, but we still met that expectation of 522,900. Previous number was 540, and when we brought it down to the bottom, it was 753,200. But what we looked at is what's more important, the number of staff that we reduce or hitting the number. And so I felt as a superintendent it was more important to hit the number. I was looking at the number. Does that make sense? And it's certifications. I mean, this is a system, it's very complex. Senate Bill 7 requires us to look at all of the evaluations of our staff. We have to compare that to the number of years of service of our staff, and then they're grouped accordingly. And then we have to create a schedule, and the schedule then dictates where people are placed. And we went through this, our principals went through this probably a good 5-10 times before we went through it as a group with the teachers. And it took us quite a bit of time. I think in total we did 3 or 4 scheduling committee meetings. Is that correct, Michelle? 3 or 4? 3 or 4?
4.
4. So it took a while to get to this. And again, Craig reviewed this. These were the final numbers. We went over it. We were in agreement. And it's within reason. All the numbers are within reason. But we can't predict who is going to, nor would I want to. We can't predict who is going to be dismissed. We cannot predict that. That's why I wanted to go through this tonight, so that you can absorb it and I can go through it again on Tuesday night. Okay, are there any additional questions?
What are the start times then?
Oh, so the start times in scenario 5, and I'm going to have to think for a second. We staggered the start times where the middle school, and this is based on conversations with the superintendent at the high school, because if we had it our way, we'd start as close to 3 o'clock because we don't want kids to be tired of the high school.
It'd be really late.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
You missed
Sorry
the
about
other half of the circus.
That happens at 8 o'clock. However, our contract limits us from doing that. So what we did is, at the middle school, you're going to start at 8:10. You're going to end at 2:55. At the elementary, you would start at 8:20, and you'd end at 3:05.
What's the high school start?
The high school starts at 8 and then at 3.
So that's not helping the high school.
In the morning, because we have a contractual obligation, we cannot start any sooner than 8:10.
All right, run over those numbers again, and that's for scenario 5.
Right.
Sorry, 5. So you want me to do it again?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Hope I can remember it.
So for Tuesday night, just have it on a sheet of paper.
That, absolutely. I'd
So
love to do that.
We'll
For
have
you.
it clear.
Absolutely. So
Oh, yeah.
for the middle school, we start at 8:10 and end at 2:55. For the elementary, we'd start at 8:20 and end at 3:05.
So you,
Okay? And at the high school, and I have no control over the high school, just discussions, they start at 8 and they end at 3. So we took all those things, we tried to consider all those things. At the same time, instructional time.
So what is the actual instructional time of the, like what's teacher to student out minute?
If you look at the elementary, there's no time change. Because currently it's 8:15 to 3 o'clock.
Dr. O'Malley.
So we bumped it by 5 minutes. At the I'm going to call it the middle school. At the middle school, it's a difference of 30 minutes.
Less.
30 minutes less.
Dr. O'Malley.
And I'll speak to that in a minute. One of the reasons we created that time, we talked about a transition schedule, and this is important. We talked about a transition schedule so that we can transition our curriculum based on our teams. So if you imagine, if you go to the grade centers, the 5th grade team is going to have to work together to build their curriculum. Same with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So they need time to work together. Same can be said for the elementary. You're going to have time at the end of the day that they can work together. Is it ideal to have anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes? No. However, during the course of a week, it's either 125 minutes. It's greater than, it's 125 minutes to about 150 minutes additional time that people could talk and meet and discuss. Additionally, we actually do no longer need the early release for scenario 5. You do not need it. So that's something we talked about.
So there would be time savings there.
There would be a time savings there.
How many
How
are
about contractually?
We're within the contractual expectations because in the contract you have
On both sides of the table?
absolutely
Okay.
because in the contract you have the scheduling committee. So we went through all of these scenarios with the scheduling committee, so they're well aware of everything we've discussed. That's how we had to design that in order to get this sheet.
So no more Wednesday early release.
We don't need it.
And then how about sick days?
Sick days will stay in the calendar, and we'll have further discussion on how the sick days would be allocated. One of the things that I'd like to do, before I talk about the sick days with this Board of Education, is I'd like to sit down with the superintendent of the high school, and I want to hear some of their ideas on what we could possibly do with our sick days. But you reserve the right as a Board of Education, you reserve the right to modify your calendar.
You do realize that Ridgewood High School has early release on Wednesdays. They get out at 2:07 every Wednesday. Okay. So we lose the early release altogether.
We would no longer need it.
But option 4, we would keep it. Yes.
Option 4, it depends. If you add the art and music in, there's a chance that do we agree to option 4 to keep the early release? Michelle, do you recall?
No, we did not agree to keep that.
Okay, so you could lose the early release in option 4 as well. However, you could lose the early release even if you don't add back the art and music. Remember, without the art and music, you're ending your day early or starting your day late. That's your choice.
What's the earliest time, safety-wise, you can drop your kids off at any of the schools? So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I know we're kind of tight on time in the beginning when school starts. Is it feasible for a parent to drop their kids off 5 minutes earlier than they normally do, and then add some more buffer in there? What is the time taken? The gates open to the time that roughly? I mean, I don't hold that.
Right. So I believe we've been shifting away from that responsibility, where we are, especially after school more. So let me speak to after school. We've been shifting away from providing services for our parents after school. In the morning, it's a little more complicated. But here's what I can share with you. I currently have a contract proposal from a third party that would be willing to provide before, middle, and after school services if the board so chooses. So it's in its infancy. It's something that I believe Union Ridge uses.
Yeah.
They just adopted it most recently. Union Ridge has this service. And so we're looking at developing a contract with this third party that if parents want that service, they can contact the third party and they can pay that fee. That would not be the responsibility of the district.
But they would be kept at the school.
Absolutely. We would provide them with a space. They would sign a contract, and then the third party would collect the revenues, and they would pay and I'm just kind of shooting from the hip a little bit, they'd pay a fee to the district for using our actual facilities or providing the heating, the lighting, air conditioning, things of that nature.
And would that have any type of, would we be in any kind of contract issue with the park?
I haven't gotten there. I just got the contract to review and have a discussion. I have not talked to the park district yet. But we have I think we have time before we make that decision. I think it's one thing at a time. So for me, I wanted to go over these 3 documents that I was required to do tonight. And I think as we progress and I get more information, I'll bring it to the board with more information. But you're correct. I think we should have the conversation with the park district first.
I was going to say, if you want to step on to it.
So if a parent
Exactly.
potentially, oh, I'm sorry. So if a parent potentially had somebody in high school, middle school, and the elementary school, there's physically no way to be able to get to all of the 3 buildings in 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes.
Okay.
And so to be able to do that, they would then have to pay this third party to be able to
Make sure their kids
get
at
all
school
their
on
kids to their right places at the right times.
That's correct.
What I was saying though is that the high school starts at 8 o'clock, but the doors don't open
And
at 8.
they open up at 7
You
or
know what I'm saying?
6:30.
So the kids can go to school earlier than 8. You know what I mean?
The
Like the
kids,
gates at Lee don't open right at the start time, do they? No. So
For the high school, the older kids could go into the school earlier, but how early do you want to drop your kindergartner off and be like,
right,
on
I'm
your
just
way,
saying
child.
there's a buffer.
I mean,
There's more buffer than what these numbers indicate. Is what I'm saying.
I think I know your question. Michelle, what time does supervision start on the field in the morning?
15 minutes before the start of the school day.
So 7:55?
No, right now it's 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
It
Okay.
started at 8:15.
So at 8 o'clock, there's
That's sometimes. They don't have the gates, but people aren't there. And then they let them in the front doors, and then the parents leave, and then they shoo them out to the gate where nobody's at the gate. And me and Mr. Giando actually witnessed that this week, where my 5-year-old was sent with no supervision. They sent them to the gate after they were running in the front, and nobody was at the gate for another 8 minutes after that, which was, I don't know, 8:06 or 8:05 at the time.
So technically we could fix that problem, but I mean technically the start time is a 15-minute, what's supposed to be.
Contractually,
So
we are obligated to help around that time. Those 15 minutes prior.
Yeah.
15 minutes
Okay.
after. So we can actually open the doors 15 minutes prior if that.
I mean, when there's bad weather, they normally let the children inside, so they let the kids in 15 minutes prior to school. I mean, is that what
I think that's what it was.
if it's raining out? I mean, the 15 minutes before they get to come in,
Yeah, they
right?
go through the office front doors,
For both folks.
Yeah, our support staff.
Yeah,
We have our support
there
staff.
is. So at least the 15
The
minutes.
support,
that
yeah,
has to
exactly.
be right.
So the support staff is there at the beginning of school to provide that service. Support staff is at the end of the school. And so currently we're paying for that.
What is it that you were talking about as far as getting rid of was that for the early release Wednesday, like where they were keeping kids over? Is that part of
Monday
That was
through
the
Friday,
Monday
what
through
happens
Friday
is